Back to our main story and developments in Libya. The National Transitional Council has now won the support of more than 30 foreign governments, but its biggest task could be to win the legitimacy of the Libyan people. Well, Nabila Ramdani is a French journalist who's written extensively about Libya. She joins me now from our London broadcast centre. Thanks for joining us live on Al Jazeera. Nabila, let's just start with the legitimacy of the NTC. They have international support coming in left, right and centre, yet there seems to be a bit of a void between the focus and the guidance perhaps that they're giving their troops on the ground as they enter Tripoli.
Well, very much so. There has always been a discrepancy between the hierarchy of the National Transitional Council, mainly made up of people who have been living in exile for most of their lives, precisely because of their political dissent to the Gaddafi regime, and indeed the rank and file, if I may put it that way, i.e. rebel forces on the ground fighting in Libya. What is also staggering is the leadership of the National Transitional Council is made up of three key figures which used to have a very close links to the Gaddafi regime and were very much part of the old guard. If you take the leader of the National Transitional Council, for example, he's Gaddafi's ex-justice minister who defected only this year, and they were also very active in helping Muammar Gaddafi make his own revolution and achieve his own revolution back in 1969 when they helped him come to power.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but how difficult then has it been from the process of when these demonstrations began in February and they developed into what we're seeing today? I mean, has there been any attempt by the NTC, the hierarchy, the political establishment of the NTC, to try and make the gap smaller between both them and the ordinary Libyans on the ground who are actually helping them in this fight, from where you are?
Well, let's not forget that the NTC is a creation, a fairly novel creation, and it has been put together by President Sarkozy of France, who effectively sent a philosopher on the ground in Benghazi, Bernard-Henri Lévy, who met a few people and came up with this idea to put together a form of legitimate government, of a legitimate interlocutor with which the West and indeed other countries backing up the rebels could interact with. So that's what was the idea behind the creation of the National Transitional Council was. But we're also seeing that on the ground, the people fighting Gaddafi are very different. And I have been to Tripoli myself, covering the conflict when it started, and I have met rebels who are involved in the fight. And the rebel group is a very eclectic group of people, made up, I have to say, of very decent people, usually highly educated, who should be commended for challenging such a nasty regime. But let's face it, most of them are very amateur, inexperienced young men wearing T-shirts and flip-flops and carrying weapons for the first times in their lives. And there are also, along those decent men, very nasty elements, including Al-Qaeda elements as part of the rebel forces.
If it is important now for the NTC to really get a handle on what's going on, how important have the statements been today by the chairman of the NTC, where he said that there's no rush to get into Tripoli from his point of view? There were suggestions that they might get on a boat and go to Tripoli. I mean, there has to be some sort of presence, does there not? When we were speaking to our correspondent on the ground earlier in Tripoli, Jackie Rowland, she suggested that perhaps some of these armed fighters on behalf of the NTC need to see some sort of political leadership, maybe not in Tripoli, but in the vicinity.
Well, I think, you know, the main reason why the rebel forces were allowed to push towards Tripoli and made such, you know, miraculous advances, if I may put it that way, and were able to enter Tripoli, it's because, let's put it bluntly, NATO provided sufficient air cover and air power. Now, the idea that entering Tripoli and indeed winning Tripoli would be enough for the rebels to hoist the flag and, think that, everything will be fine after. That's what rather naive. We're talking about a city which is a vast city of 2 million people out of, 6 million inhabitants in Tripoli, a city which has been the heartland of the Gaddafi regime and indeed the Gaddafi clan for over 42 years. Now, this is, in order to, get control over that city, you need to be able to hold down a city which has very much been shaped by Gaddafi. And this is proving the biggest challenge ever, especially since we're now talking about capturing a city which effectively is a massive built-up area, an urban area where NATO air power will prove to be insufficient.
Indeed. Well, for the moment there, Nabila Ramdani, thanks so much for joining us and giving us insight in your position on the NTC and what they stand for. Thanks very much.